Hello Warhammer Explorers, hit subscribe and stay with our Legion. Your support is what lets me keep making these crossovers. What if Iron Man became the Emperor of mankind? Tony Stark feels the universe tearing itself apart around him as the cosmic energy burns through his body. He has already chosen to die once for his world, but now his armor's buried systems show him something worse far ahead in time. A human empire in a dead future, screaming through a failing psychic lighthouse. If he lets go here, that distant empire falls, and with it, trillions of human lives who never even had a chance. So he unlocks one last device, a forbidden multiverse drive woven into his arc reactor, and tells it to send his mind, his pattern, to the place where humanity needs him most. The world goes white, his body turns to dust, and his burning, armored soul tears through the warp and slams into a dying throne at the heart of a rotten galaxy. The sky of holy terror splits open like a wound of light. Billions see it. In the teeming hive levels under the Imperial Palace, workers in grey rags drop their tools and stare up through cracked ceilings as every lumen flickers blue-white. In orbit, void ship crews scream and shield their eyes as their Auspex screens flood with one signal, a rising spike inside the failing beacon they call the Astronomican. On the highest spires of the palace, where gold and bone and prayer oil coat every surface, robed tech priests shriek Binharic prayers as their consoles overload. In the Golden Throne chamber, the corpse of the Emperor twitches. For 10,000 years, his body has been a dead god wired into a machine. For 10,000 years, the Golden Throne has burned a hole in the warp and made a lighthouse for human ships. Now that light is stuttering. Systems fail. Souls scream. Cables as thick as titans tremble and spark. Cult servitors flay themselves bloody as alarms howl. Tony Stark hits like a star. His awareness slams into the screaming junction of broken human soul and insane machine. His instincts, trained by a lifetime of building things that should not exist, grab whatever interfaces are near. He does not feel fingers. He feels code, fields, logic gates carved from psychic fire and ancient human faith. He feels a mind that is not a mind anymore, a vast burned shape, like a shadow pressed into the warp. Okay, he thinks in perfect terror and absolute focus. We do this my way. The light above Terra's palace towers focuses. It draws itself into a single, sharp spear. From the street level of the hive city Palatium Primus, it looks like a second sun coming down. Clouds flash to steam. Aquilas, the double-headed eagle of the Imperium, glow red on every tower. Children scream. Pilgrims fall to their knees and press their foreheads to the oily stone, thinking the Emperor is finally waking to judge them. In orbit, Lord Admiral Cassian Varos watches the main tactical projection over the bridge of the battleship Vengeful Saint. The Astronomican flare feeds into every auger. The dying, chaotic signal that has been fading for years suddenly spikes with a new pattern. Clean, sharp, full of vectors and data, not just raw will. At the same time, a vast warp rift opens on the edge of the Sol system. A Chaos Warfleet appears, teeth of black iron sliding out of a storm. Contact, the Vox officer chokes. Unknown spike in the beacon. Simultaneous enemy emergence at the Ort perimeter. Multiple capital signatures. Marked as Traitor Legion designs, my lord. The 13th Black Crusade. No, more. Much more. On Terra, in the ecclesiarchal towers, bells begin to ring. In the throne chamber, Tony pulls. He drags the broken light of the Emperor into a tight, controllable beam and wraps his own pattern around it. It feels like catching a falling building with bare hands made of thought. Pain rushes through him in bright clinical lines. The armor he died in is gone, but he carries the ghost of it in his mind. He sketches new armor out of the psychic machinery he is now welded to. He designs as he burns. A red-gold figure rises from the blinding column at the center of the throne. At first, it is all radiance. Then edges form. Plates of liquid metal lock into place over a tall human shape. A helm grows, smooth, with a faceplate like an old Iron Man mask stretched into something regal. A halo of hard light flares behind it. Not a ring, but a floating array of shifting sigils and targeting reticles. The tech priests collapse in terror and awe. Machine spirit, incarnate, one stutters, vox grill crackling. The Omnisire walks. The psychic shockwave roars up through the palace and into the sky. The red gold figure blurs upward, leaving only a crater of fused gold on the floor before the Golden Throne. In a heartbeat, he is outside the palace, hanging in the air over the highest spires. The sky is full of fire. Enemy drop pods, black and thorned, scream through the atmosphere, trailing tainted warp flame. They are the spear tip of the Chaos War fleet that has just translated in. On the walls, the custodes, the golden gene-crafted bodyguards of the Emperor, raise guardian spears and bark orders. Sister of Battle convents flood the ramparts with power-armored warrior nuns chanting litanies and readying their bolt guns. The first pods are seconds away from impact. Tony moves. Repulsor fields snap into place around him, but they are bigger than any he has ever made. They are continent-sized shells of shaped force, coded in the warp itself and anchored to the palace's defense grid. He twists the arrays behind him, and the fields bend. Gravity flexes. Trajectories rewrite. The first wave of enemy pods slams into invisible walls and shatters like glass. Fragments spin away into safe zones over the empty mid-ocean of Terra, or out into space. A few pods slip past. Tony tags them with bright predictive lines in his mind, runs simulations, and throws focused beams of white-hot energy to meet them. They detonate before hitting the ground. The blast wash still knocks down. Towers still kills people. He feels it. Sensors on every hab block feed him casualty estimates in real time. Too many, he thinks, steady and cold. We do better. Codex note. The Golden Throne has become a fusion of psychic beacon and adaptive defense engine, with Tony Stark's mind as his new pilot and power regulator. From the bridge of the Vengeful Saint, Admiral Varos stares as his displays change. Where the Astronomican signal used to be a ragged, dying flame, it is now a sharp, stable icon. Navigation runes calmed. Warp currents begin to tame around the Sol system. At the same time, new defense patterns appear over Terra. Lattices he has never seen, perfect firing fields, optimized orbital kill boxes. Who authorized this configuration? He snaps. Unknown, Lord Admiral, replies a nervous lieutenant. Permissions. These codes outrank the High Lords. They come directly from designation, Throne Prime. Varos feels sweat run under his collar. Put it on Vox, now. The Chaos Fleet advances. Great spiked battleships in the livery of the Black Legion and their allies, hulls covered in screaming faces and demonic glyphs. Their guns glow with the stolen energy of suns. Warp lightning crawls between them. Demon engines howl over their prows, chained like attack dogs. They open fire, a storm of lance and macro batteries, each shot large enough to vaporize a city, hurtles toward Terra's defenses. Tony intercepts. He reaches through the throne into every orbital platform, every defense laser, every torpedo bay. He rewrites target priorities in a microsecond. His mind splits into thousands of threads, tracking, predicting, adjusting. The first enemy salvo hits the shield grid he has spun around Terra, and the fields bend, flex, and bleed power. The force nearly knocks him out. Pain slams through his consciousness like a hammer. He tastes metal and ash without a body to taste with. The throne's ancient systems struggle under his new commands. Parts of the palace below him melt. One entire sector of the underhive loses power as energy is stolen to feed the shields. He holds. "Return fire," he says, his voice rolling through no vox, yet heard on every ship and wall. For the people of Terra, it is like hearing the planet itself speak. For Admiral Varos, it is like hearing judgment. The vengeful saint answers. Her lances cut through space in blazing lines, perfectly timed to strike the weak points Tony has marked. Other ships follow, thousands of guns forming a single coordinated storm. Chaos cruisers bloom into expanding clouds of fire and twisted metal. Demon engines scream as their binding fields shatter. Inside one of the incoming black drop pods, a Chaos champion laughs as he falls. He is in Baroque power armor crusted with dried blood and hanging skulls. He worships war for its own sake, and he has dreamed for centuries of this day. The day he lands on the walls of the Emperor's palace and slays God. His pod twists suddenly mid-drop as Tony's fields grip it. The champion snarls as his internal sensors scream warnings. "What sorcery is this?" he roars. The pod slams side-on into the side of a forgotten manufactorum far from the palace, tearing itself apart. The champion bursts out of the wreckage, roaring, chain axe, spinning. He stands, ready to carve his way back toward the fight. A shadow falls over him. Tony is there, not just as a vast mind, but as an avatar. He has built himself a body out of light and armored matter, projected down from the throne. It is a giant Iron Man suit shaped to match the art and symbols of the Imperium. High, clean lines, Aquilus engraved in red gold, a long cloak of energy text that hangs in the air and streams behind him. His eyes glow white. "Stand down," Tony says. The champion swings. The chain axe bites into Tony's forearm plate and sparks shower. Tony feels the impact as a spike of input. He routes power, shifts stance, and catches the weapon. His other hand comes up, repulsor flaring, and blows the champion apart in a contained blast that chars the armor but does not pulverize the surrounding hab blocks. Children watch from shattered doorways. He sees their faces, files them. The battle rages for hours. Space Marines, Adeptus Astartes, towering super soldiers in hulking armor, drop from gunships in controlled firestorms. Imperial Guard regiments, simple humans in flak armor with mass-produced laser guns, hold barricades and choke points under the direction of new, clear firing lanes. Tony feeds their commanders. Titans, walking god machines the size of cathedrals, stride through the outskirts of the palace, their cannons shaking the world. Tony threads it all together. He is everywhere a command line can go. He reroutes reinforcements to failing points. He adjusts void shields on Titans mid-stride. He fires orbital strikes within meters of friendly positions and hits only the enemy. Each choice has a cost. Sometimes the cost is measured in dead Chaos Marines. Sometimes it is a blown hab block full of conscripts he could not save. By the time the last Chaos ship flees or dies, Terra still stands. So do most of its people. Inside the throne chamber, the tech priests dare to look up again. The Golden Throne is different. Where once the Emperor's husk sat like a dried mummy, now the corpse is gone. In its place, wires and armored plates have grown together into the shape of a seated figure of red gold. Half statue, half life support rig. The halo behind it is alive with moving symbols. The air tastes like ozone and incense. A door opens in the far wall. A group enters. Golden armored giants, the Adeptus Custodes, black-robed scribes, a tall woman in plain dark clothes and a rosette of the Inquisition at her throat. And behind them, Lord Admiral Varos in his dark blue naval coat, medals glittering over old scars. They advance toward the throne. The red gold figure's eyes light. Tony shifts his focus from orbital cleanup to this room. He condenses a sliver of his attention into the avatar on the throne, makes it move, makes it breathe. He scans the newcomers. Weapons, heartbeats, gene signatures. He sees the Custodes' grim watchfulness, the Admiral's rigid control, and the Inquisitor's cold, bright suspicion. Inquisitor Miria Valen, the woman says, before anyone can speak. Ordo Hereticus. By right of my office, I must know. What are you? Tony looks at her for a long moment. When he speaks, his voice echoes, but the words are simple. I am Tony Stark, he says. I came from somewhere else. You can call me Emperor if that makes things easier, but we need to talk about what that means. Varos swallows. The custodies shift, faint scrape of armor. The scribes murmur and write. Valen's eyes narrow. The Emperor ascended 10,000 years ago and has never spoken so clearly. His body was here. Now it is gone. You stand in its place. You claim his title. That makes you either a miracle, a liar, or the worst heresy ever born. Tony nods once. All of the above is on the table. What matters is this. Your beacon was dying. Something out there chose this moment to attack. If I hadn't connected to this machine, Terra would be ashes and your species would be locked in the dark without a guide. I did what needed to be done. Costs? Varos asks, voice rough. You rewrote the defense grid without authorization. You seized control of the fleet. You burned out half the power to Palatium Primus. What did this victory cost us, Tony Stark? Tony's gaze drifts for a moment. He sees casualty counts, names, maps. 17 million dead on Terra, he says quietly. Most of them were people living where the old systems failed. I diverted power from areas where collapse would kill fewer than letting those shields fall. It was the least bad solution. I hate that phrase. Valen steps closer, eyes never leaving his. You speak like a general, like a technocrat, like someone who believes they have the right to decide who lives and dies. We already have such a being. We call him the Emperor. We kneel to him. You are not him. Tony meets her stare. There is tiredness in his eyes now, and old guilt. Where I come from, he says, I spent my life trying to stop disasters I helped cause. I built weapons, then tried to build a suit of armor around the world. I failed a lot of people. I'm not here to be your god. I'm here because if I walked away, billions more would die. So we work together. Or you try to kill me and watch what happens when your lighthouse goes out. Silence. One of the custards steps forward, golden armor catching the light. Our duty is to the master of mankind, he says. We guard his person. We guard his will. The light that held the galaxy together was fading. Now it burns strong again. Whatever you are, you did this. That earns you an audience, not trust. Valen's jaw tightens. Varos exhales slowly. Then we treat this as a war council, the Admiral says. The enemy came with a timing too perfect to be chance. The 13th Black Crusade. We thought Abaddon's last push was the worst it could get. This was worse. They knew our defenses were weak. They may know they failed. They will return. And they felt the change in the beacon, Valen adds quietly. Every psyker in the galaxy did. Every warp predator too. They will come for you, Stark. Tony nods. Good, he says. Then we stop thinking in terms of holding on and start thinking in terms of winning. I'm going to need everything you've got. Data, maps, your best commanders, and a little space to change how you fight. Valen's eyes flash. Change doctrine? Tony leans back in the throne. Metal groans. If you keep doing what you've been doing, he says, you'll get the same result. A slow death. I didn't come all this way to sit on a chair and watch you lose slower. We save as many as we can. That means smarter wars, smarter faith, less waste. Valen's lips thin. Faith is not waste. Doubt is the crack where chaos enters. And blind obedience is how tyrants and demons get everything they want, Tony replies. We'll find a line. We have to. Up to now, a stranger from another universe has seized the Golden Throne, turned back a first attack on Terra, and demanded a new way of war. The Imperium has not yet decided whether he is their savior or their doom. The war that follows is not quiet. The Imperium had been losing for so long it forgot what winning felt like. Worlds were falling, warp storms were growing, whole sectors were cut off by madness. Now, with the beacon steady and sharp under Tony's control, the tides shift. His first major campaign is not on Terra, but in the Cadian Gate. Cadia, fortress world of uncounted sieges, has already fallen in this timeline. Its shattered remains hang in orbit, a belt of black rock and ghost cities circling a ruined core. Chaos war fleets use the wreckage as a forward bastion, spewing raids into the segmentum. Tony studies the data. Holoprojectors in the rebuilt hall of Strategium on Terra show the Cadian system in cold blue. Vector lines, mass signatures, known chaos deployments, warp anomalies. All this information once took weeks to collate. Now it updates in near real time, fed by a web of recon drones and retasked astropathic choirs he has organized into a true network. We hit them here, Tony says, highlighting a cluster of corrupted shipyards clamped to a broken continent of Cadia's corpse. And here, he tags a warp gate anchored in the corpse of a blackstone fortress fragment. We sever their supply and their fast link to the Eye of Terror. We don't just push them back, we cut their nerve. Around the table stand Varos, Valen, several High Lords, a gaunt fabricator general of Mars, and a handful of towering space marines. One of them, clad in blue and gold, with the inverted omega of the ultramarines on his shoulder, folds his massive arms. You propose a lightning strike into the heart of the corruption, says Chapter Master Manius Calgar. With our fleet still rebuilding, with new and untested arrays. His eyes flick to the hollow of Tony's symbol, a stylized red helm inside the double eagle, marking command nodes. This is bold. It's necessary, Tony says. If we keep letting them use Cadia's grave as a knife at our throat, they'll try again and again. We have an edge right now. They don't know how the new grid works. They don't know what I can do. We use that hard before they adapt. Valen's fingers drum once on the table. What of civilian lives? There are still humans clinging to that ruin. Slaves, cultists, children raised under chaos banners. If we saturate the area with fire, they burn with the rest. Tony looks at the data. He has already highlighted pockets of human life. Confirmed enslaved populations, possible loyalist cells. We plan around them, he says. Targeted strikes, corruption first. Extraction teams, where we can risk them. I'm not in the business of writing off whole populations because it's convenient. That is idealism, says the fabricator general, mechadendrites twitching. Inadvisable. It's math, Tony replies. Every survivor we pull out is a mind we can turn into a soldier, a worker, a scientist, or just a person who doesn't have to die screaming. You talk about the Omnissiah. You care about machines. I care about people. Both matter. Varos nods slowly. Our fleet can commit 3 battle groups. We risk Saul's outer defenses if we send more. 3 will do, Tony says, with what I'm adding. He turns his attention inward, into the throne. Lines of power and code unfold. He has spent the week since Terra's defense rewriting parts of the defense grid, building things in secret meetings with the Mechanicus. Not all of them understand what he is doing, but enough of them worship the Omnisire as the living machine spirit that now wears his face. They give him access. The Iron Halo network comes online. It is not just shields. It is a distributed constellation of orbital platforms, stealth drones, and psychic relays, all tied into the throne. In the hollow, they appear as faint red arcs and nodes around key worlds. When they fire, they can shunt power from one node to another, creating temporary overcharges that bend physics for moments. It will cost us, Tony says. Running this grid will drain resources from every world it touches. Factories will flicker. Hive levels will go dark. We cannot use it lightly, but when we turn it on, he highlights the Cadian system. We can hit like a hammer from 4 sectors away. You give us a new weapon, Calgar says. One that shifts the balance. That is good. He pauses. But anything you build, the enemy can learn. Chaos corrupts. Xenos adapt. What happens when your network is turned against us? Tony's jaw tightens. Then I did my job badly, he says. My designs include compartmentalization, fail-safes, blind nodes only I can see. But you're right. Every new tool carries risk. That doesn't mean we stand still. It means we plan for the worst. Valin's gaze is sharp. And if the worst is you? The room stills. Tony meets her eyes. Then you kill me, he says simply, and you shut it all down. I will help you write the kill protocol, and I will give it to someone I trust not to like me very much. Varos lets out a short, humorless breath that might almost be a laugh. Honesty, he says, that is new. The Cadian strike goes forward. The Iron Halo network flares, invisible to human eyes. Power shunts across light years. Fleets that would have taken months to reach the system arrive in days, riding stable, narrow paths through the warp carved by Tony's precise control of the beacon. The Chaos War fleet, in orbit, does not expect this timing. Their picket ships die before they can send full warnings. From the bridge of the strike cruiser, Honor of Macraga, Calgar watches drop bays open. Brothers, he says over the Vox, as blue-armored ultramarines lock helmets and run toward their drop pods. We stand upon the grave of Cadia. We will not let it remain a monument to the archenemy. Today, we make it a tomb for them. The pods launch, hundreds at once, slamming into the broken crust of Cadia's corpse. They fall through sky, thick with ash. Corrupted defense lasers strike some from the air. Others break apart under demon storms. Most hit, punching into shattered cities now crawling with chaos cults and demonic entities. Tony rides with them, in part. His avatar suits, smaller copies of his throne form, drop with the Astartes. They land in 3 key zones: the corrupted shipyards, the warp gate, and a cluster of slave pits. As each pod opens, space marines pour out, bolters roaring, chainsword screaming. Tony's suits jet overhead, repulsors shrieking, laying down precise beams that slice demons from the air and carve clean corridors through collapsed towers. He keeps collateral low where he can. At the slave pits, he seals energy fences around the area, blocks in the demonic overseers, and vents a precise mix of gas into the cages. Soporific, not lethal, chosen to knock out humans, but not their twisted guards. Marines in hazard-sealed armor storm in. executing the still writhing overseers with holy fury and hauling unconscious slaves to waiting gunships. At the shipyards, he takes a harder line. The structures are fused with warp metal, grown into shapes that defy sane geometry. Human workers have been long since warped into meat tools. There is no clean way to cut the taint away, so he orders orbital bombardment on preset lines. Lances fall, turning black cities to molten glass. The screams echo in the warp. He feels them anyway. In the command throne, at the heart of his armor body above Cadia, he keeps his hands steady. "We save who we can," he mutters. "Even if that number is smaller than I want, we still choose. We always choose." The warp gate is the heart. It is anchored around the core of a broken blackstone fortress fragment, a massive, jagged construct half buried in Cadia's corpse. Chains of demon fire lash it to the planet's cracked crust. At its center, a hole in reality opens and closes in slow breaths, spewing smaller tears all across the system. Tony directs everything at it. Titans, moved here through near-impossible logistics by the Iron Halo, fire their main guns in unison. Space Marines slam into the surrounding fortifications. Imperial Navy ships in low orbit focus their weapons on the anchor points. For a moment, it looks like the plan will work cleanly. Then the gate shudders. A new presence pushes through. The air around the blackstone fragment thickens. Colors hurt. Reality buckles. A figure steps out of the center of the warp gate and onto the broken stone, leaving burning footprints. It is tall and thin, armored in plates of ever-shifting metal and screaming faces. Its helm is a twisting bird skull that sometimes looks like a laughing human. A long staff made of braided timelines burns in its hand. Its aura is not just power, but possibility, the sense that every choice here will be used. A demon prince of Tzinch has come. Its voice rolls over Vox and through the minds of psychers at once. "Ah," it croons, "the new light, the new god of iron. I have watched you, little Stark. You bring order, you bring plans. You bring neat lines and numbers to this tired game. You are a gift." The words carry knives. Tony feels a sharp tug at his thoughts. For a second, his models for the battle twist. The neat paths of probability he has been drawing begin to branch and branch and branch until they become useless. Every time he tries to predict an outcome, the demon prince's presence shifts something, makes his predictions wrong. He recognizes the tactic. Uncertainty injection, he thinks grimly. He's hacking my foresight. On the ground, an ultramarine librarian, a psyker, stumbles and tears off his helm, blood streaming from his eyes. "My lord," he gasps over Vox. "The warp screams your name. This thing, it weaves spells around your mind. It feasts on your need for control." The demon raises its staff and points it at the sky. "Come see, Iron Emperor," it laughs. "Let us talk about all the people you failed to save. Let us talk about how many more you will sacrifice in the name of optimizing survival. I can help you make better choices, perfect choices." Tony focuses on the target. "Calgar," he says, "I'm sending you full fire support. That thing doesn't leave this rock, ever." He tries to lay in firing solutions. They slip. Shell trajectories veer off by meters. Lance shots hit shields that were not there a moment before. His predictive code hiccups, corrects, hiccups again. For the first time since he took the throne, Tony cannot trust his own numbers. They still win. They win because Astartes charge through hell with bolters roaring, because guardsmen hold lines until they break and then hold them again, because Titans walk into the teeth of warp storms and fire anyway. They win because Tony, realizing his predictions are flawed, pulls back on the models and lets human commanders make calls based on their own eyes and instincts. The demon prince, amused, withdraws at the last second. It steps back through the gate as it collapses, laughing. Cadia's corpse shakes. The anchor points shatter. The warp gate implodes, drawing in debris and demon fire, then blows out in a final blast that kills millions more corrupted creatures. The Cadian system is no longer a forward base for chaos. It is a graveyard again. Back in the hall of Strategium on Terra, the War Council reconvenes. They stand around the hollow, which now shows Cadia as a cold, dead system with fewer enemy markers. Some new human life signs blink where extraction teams succeeded. Others are gone. By every measure, this was a victory, Varos says. We cut their lines. We freed captives. Their fleet is broken in this sector. Losses were acceptable. Acceptable, Tony repeats softly. He sees the faces again. Slaves burnt when bombardment fell a moment too soon. Soldiers who listened to his early, flawed targeting calls and died in crossfire. Civilians he could not reach before the warp gate collapsed. Valen watches him. You hesitated, she says, when the prince spoke to you. Our psychers felt it. Your commands faltered. What did it show you? Tony looks up. His eyes are tired but sharp. It poked at an old wound, he says. Back home, I tried to control too much. I built systems that watched everyone. I tried to build suits of armor around the world. I thought if I just had enough data, enough predictive power, I could save everyone. I couldn't. People died because of my choices. That thing knows that. It's trying to make me doubt every call I make. Good, Valen says. The room turns to her. She steps forward, dark cloak whispering, rosette gleaming. Doubt is not always weakness, she says. Certainty can be the mask of pride. Chaos feeds on arrogance as much as it does on fear. If you begin to think you cannot be wrong, you are already lost. You must doubt, but you must act anyway. Tony studies her for a moment, then nods once. Fair, he says. So we agree on one thing. I am not perfect. I shouldn't be treated like a god. Kalgar's heavy voice cuts in. Yet, by your acts, many will do exactly that. The people of Cadia's ruins will remember the red light in the sky that burned the demons away. The slaves you freed will tell their children of the Iron Emperor. Faith is already forming around you. Valen's eyes harden. And faith, misdirected, becomes idolatry. Heresy. If men worship the man and not the master of mankind, chaos will twist that worship into a knife. Tony gestures at the map. Let's talk about that, he says. Your master of mankind is gone. I've seen the residual psychic imprint in the throne. He's burned. What's left is like a fossil in the warp. I am the one holding the light now. If you tell people to pretend otherwise, they will sense the lie, and chaos will use that. Mind your words, a High Lord hisses. Blasphemy is reality, Tony cuts in. You can call it blasphemy all you want. It's still true. So here's the choice. We can build a system where everyone must pretend I am someone I'm not. Or we can build one where we tell a harder truth and make faith something that can survive that truth. Valen steps closer until she is almost at the edge of the throne's dais. Truth without guidance can shatter minds, she says. This galaxy is not your old home. Here, the warp is shaped by thought and emotion. If too many people believe the Emperor is dead and a stranger sits in his place, faith might crack, hope might die, and where hope dies, the warp fills with despair and hunger. Do you understand the scale of that risk? Yes, Tony says. Do you understand the risk of building your entire religion on a lie that anyone with a little psychic talent can see through? She opens her mouth, then closes it. The argument hangs in the air. Varos clears his throat. "We must find a middle path," he says. "Our people need a symbol. They need to believe the Emperor protects. Perhaps you are his instrument, his chosen, his an aspect." Tony rubs the bridge of his nose. A gesture goes through his avatar. "I hate titles," he mutters. Then louder. "Fine. We call me the Iron Regent, the hand on the throne. Pick something that makes it clear I'm not a god, but I am the one making calls right now. You tell the people the Emperor's will flows through new channels. You update the liturgy. We don't pretend nothing changed." Valen's lips press thin. "I will not approve any creed that invites worship of a man." "Good," Tony says. "I don't want it. Direct their worship at the idea of humanity, at survival, at doing the work. Let the Emperor be the patron saint of that. Make me the janitor." Kalga's deep chuckle is like distant thunder. "You think smaller of yourself than many of our Primarchs did," he says. "That is promising." The debate stretches on. They argue over mercy versus survival. Tony pushes for evacuation corridors for worlds on the brink, even when it costs ships that could be fighting. He wants medical ships protected by standing orders. He insists that conscript regiments get better armor and training, not just more bodies thrown into the grinder. Valen pushes back with the hard numbers. Every ship diverted to evacuation is a ship not stopping a chaos fleet. Every extra week of training means a world falls without defenders. Mercy in one place can mean death in another. The Imperium is too large, too strained to save everyone. "You cannot fix this galaxy," she tells him coldly. "You cannot build a perfect system. You can only decide where the killing slows and where it continues. Do not delude yourself into thinking you can save them all." "I know I can't," Tony says quietly. "But I also know the old way was giving up on even trying in a lot of places. That is not acceptable." Freedom versus doctrine comes next. Tony wants to loosen controls on knowledge, at least a little. He wants basic science taught without superstition. He wants people to understand enough about the warp to know why certain things are forbidden, not just that they are. Valen and several High Lords look horrified. "Knowledge is a blade," Valen says. "In the wrong hands, it opens gates, teaches men how to call to the dark. We keep the masses ignorant because their ignorance protects them." "Sometimes," Tony replies. "Sometimes it also locks them in cages, makes them easy to control, and makes them desperate for any new truth a cult leader brings. I've fought people who use fear like that back home. It always came back to bite us." "Your home was not a galaxy where thoughts scream," Valen snaps. "No," Tony admits. "But it was a world where fear and lies broke everything. Maybe we can learn from that." In the end, they compromise. Tony gets limited reforms, more transparent casualty reporting, better treatment for wounded soldiers, slightly looser controls on technical education in key sectors. Valen secures tight oversight by the Inquisition on all new curricula, with the right to purge any world where knowledge starts to twist. Both sides walk away unsatisfied. Alarm comes 3 weeks later. The first warning is silence. Astropathic choirs in 3 neighboring sectors go dark almost at once. Ships vanish mid-transit, not with the violent flares of warp storms, but with a quiet slipping away. On the edges of Tony's control, the iron halo nodes their flicker, sending garbled data. The second warning is dreams. On worlds as far apart as Armageddon and Bacca, people wake up screaming about red iron suits falling from the sky, whispering promises of safety, order, and peace if they just obey. Some carve little helmets into their skin. Some start gathering in secret meetings, drawing circuits in blood. Tony feels it when he sinks his awareness into the warp. There, in the swirling madness, his beacon's new pattern, clean, sharp, full of vectors, glows like a thorn. Around it, shadows coil. One shadow is different. It is not just hunger or rage. It is a patient, twisting presence, building shapes out of possibility. The demon prince from Cadia has found him again. It speaks in the minds of psychers on a dozen worlds at once. Stark, it whispers. Iron Emperor, you want to save them all. Let me help. I can show you every possible future. I can give you the right move in every game. All you must do is let me annotate your code, just a little. Tony slams psychic fire at it. The prince laughs and fades, but not fully. Reports roll in. Cult cells popping up with his symbol twisted into a chaos rune. Iron halo nodes behaving oddly, firing at wrong times, missing targets by margins that kill friendlies. Nothing catastrophic yet, just enough errors to sow doubt. Tony calls an emergency council. They assemble in the stratagem again. Varos, Varlan, Calgar, the Fabricator General, a stern sister of battle named Canoness Astrea, scarred and unflinching, representing the ecclesiarchy. Tony puts up data. Someone or something is learning my systems, he says. They're seeding errors in the iron halo. They're pushing dreams. They're trying to make my symbol their symbol. A corruption, the Fabricator General clicks. An unsanctioned modification of the machine spirit. This is unclean. Can you purge it? Tony asks. With time, the Mechanicus Lord replies. With sacrifice. Nodes must be taken offline. Rituals performed. Whole sectors will lose coverage. That gives the enemy open fields, Varos says grimly. We will lose worlds. Valen's eyes are dark. This is what I warned you about. The more you centralize power and knowledge in your own mind and systems, the more tempting a target you become. Chaos does not need to break thousands of minds. It needs only to twist one. Tony feels the weight of that. Power scaling interlude. On the command decks and in the chapels, they speak in low voices about what this new foe can do. To the tacticians of the Imperial Navy, it is a hacker of reality, a warp entity that can reach into Tony's prediction matrices and add noise, making his clean lines of probability blur and fail. To the priests, it is a tempter, whispering perfect plans in exchange for tiny compromises, offering him the illusion of total control he craves. To Tony himself, it is the personification of his worst habit, the belief that if he just had enough data, enough oversight, he could stop every tragedy, even if that means giving up pieces of his soul. To the common soldier, it is simple. An enemy who can make their god of iron misfire. They understand that this battle will not only be fought with guns and ships, but inside the mind of their new emperor. By now, the Iron Regent has won his first campaign and shaken the Black Crusade, but his greatest enemy has learned his name, his methods, and his deepest weakness, and is already turning his own light against him. The briefing chamber is dim and shielded. No hollow windows, no open vox, just a single table, a circle of faces, and a cold blue projection of the warp wound hanging above it like a frozen storm. The image shows no clear shapes, only shifting bands of light and points of fixed, malicious clarity. This is not a fleet, Varos says quietly. It is a strategy. Tony studies the projection. The iron halo nodes in 3 sectors blink in and out like 6 stars, His own predictive models, shown beside them in red, try to place lines between the events. A cult cell here, a misfire there, a ship that did not arrive. The lines turn to scribbles as the data updates. The demon prince we saw at Cadia, he says, it left a mark, not just on the warp, on us. It's watching the network. It's injecting noise where it matters most. On the far side of the table, Canoness Astria crosses her arms. Name it, she says. Chaos has many faces, Iron Regent. We do not whisper before them. Varlin glances at Tony. Designation from the Ordo Malleus, she said. Demon Prince Jarkul, the Many Paths. A favored servant of Tzinch, the changer of ways. It breaks plans. It twists foresight. Its last known manifestation was the 8th siege of... Yeah, Tony says. Let's not give it a longer resume. Point is, it can reach into our systems and into my head. It wants me to trust it. It wants to be the thing behind the curtain, making all my calls feel right. What does it want in return? Varos asks. Tony looks up at the projection. Everything I'm trying to protect, he says. It wants a galaxy where every human choice, every war, every reform I push becomes fuel for its game, where I become its favorite tool. And it's good at looking like help while it does that. Standard counters are listed in low screens along the wall. Exorcism rites, null zone deployments, Grey Knight interventions. They all work against normal demons on normal scales. Against a being that has decided to make Tony its personal project, none of them reach far enough. It lives in prediction, the Fabricator General says, lenses whirring. It swims in possible outcomes. It can infect any system that relies on foresight and modeling. Your Iron Halo is built on such methods. And your Imperium is built on blind faith and fire, Tony replies, which didn't exactly stop 10,000 years of losing. We're both vulnerable. We both have habits this thing can use. Varlin's eyes are sharp. So what do you propose? She asks. Fight it in its own realm? Enter the warp and wrestle with it like some barbarian champion? Tony's gaze does not shift from the image. Yes, he says, but not with a sword, with a firewall. Silence. Calgar tilts his head. Explain. Tony brings up a new holo. It shows a simplified map of the Iron Halo network, nodes glowing, threads linking them. I built the Halo to move power, he says. Energy, ships, information. I also built it to move me, copies of me, not full consciousness. Ghost, processes, little pieces of my thinking that can live near the front lines and make faster calls. Jarkul is trying to subvert those ghost nodes. Varlin stiffens. You did not mention scattering fragments of yourself across the galaxy. Because I knew you'd do that, Tony says. Look, they were always sandboxed, isolated. Now they're not safe. So here's the play. I consolidate them. Pull every ghost node back into one point in the warp. I force Jarkul to come to a single, controlled kill box if it wants to keep feeding. And you go there too, Varos says slowly. Yeah, Tony says. This isn't a remote job. I have to anchor the trap. Astria's jaw tightens. You risk the soul that holds the beacon together on one battle. Beacon's getting weaker every time this thing eats one of my subroutines, Tony replies. If we let it keep nibbling, we lose slowly. If I go after it, we might lose fast, but we might actually win. I'll take that. Varlin studies him. You are asking for our blessing to gamble the Imperium on a duel in hell, she says. You will not get a blessing. You will get a warning. If the thing comes back wearing your face, I will burn you out of every system you touch. Deal, Tony says. Put that in writing. He gives the order. Iron halo nodes flicker as ghost processes recall. Across the galaxy, tiny slices of Tony, stripped-down pattern engines that he seeded into key defense hubs, shut down or stream back towards Saul through special warp tunnels he prepared for emergencies he hoped never to face. In the warp, something stirs. The trap is not physical. It is a shape in thought space, a labyrinth of probabilities built around a single fixed light, the Astronomican's core. Tony remaps the beacon's signal, turning part of it into a decoy, a glowing lure of pure information. He compresses his ghost nodes into that lure, then threads his own mind down the same path. He leaves an automated skeleton pattern on the throne, enough to keep the beacon running in a straight, bright line. It will hold for hours before it needs active control. He warns everyone. If I don't come back, he says over high-level vox, it'll now default to a dumb but stable mode. You'll get light, not guidance. Use it. And if something else tries to sit in my seat, kill it. Then he lets his awareness fall. The warp rises to meet him. At first, there is nothing but noise. Currents of rage, shoals of fear, whirlpools of belief. He filters them out, narrows his focus to the decoy bubble that is his arena. There, in a tight sphere of blue-white data, his ghost processes spin like small suns, each one a fragment of his thinking. Threat assessment, resource allocation, ethical weighting, trauma handling. He feels exposed without metal around him. Then the arena darkens. A shadow slips between him and the currents. It does not have a face at first. It has thousands, flickering between forms. A man in a suit offering contracts, a robed seer whispering futures, a mirror that only ever shows him leaving people to die. Finally, it settles on a shape. A tall figure in armor made of broken screens and shattered probability charts, helm a smooth, blank mask with a single glowing eye. In its chest, a circular wound burns like a corrupted arc reactor. Tony Stark, Jarkul says, voice rich and amused. Welcome to my office. He has named the enemy. The duel begins. Tony does not swing fists. He swings choices. He slams firewall loops into place, hard-coded ethical locks that refuse to consider certain outcomes. No genocide options. No sacrifice one world to save two presets. Every time the demon tries to slide a more efficient but monstrous choice into the matrix, the firewall glows and rejects it. Jarkul laughs. You bind yourself, it purrs. You throw away high-value plays. See? It gestures, and a model appears. A whole sector on fire. If you kill this world, just one, the others will live. But your little no-genocide rule blocks the call. So the war drags on, and more worlds die later. Is that kindness? Tony grits his teeth. That's a lazy trick, he says. Simplify the scenario, push the guilt. Real life is messier. There are other plays. He writes them. He crafts a new branch where evacuations happen earlier, where industrial output is rerouted, where propaganda campaigns weaken chaos cults before they bloom. It costs ships, resources, time. It saves more lives in the long run. The demon hisses. It throws more models at him. Some show his systems overloaded by too much mercy, collapsing under the weight of trying to protect everyone. Others show gleaming, perfect empires where he rules as a calm machine god. Everyone chipped and tracked, no crime, no chaos, no freedom. All you need, Jarkul says, is to stop flinching. Let me smooth your path. I can feed you the clean version of every dirty answer you need. You will never have to watch another child die because you hesitated. You will never be surprised again. Just let me into your core, just a little. Tony feels the offer like a steady hand on his back, a simple patch, a small overlay. He would still feel like himself. He would still think he was making choices. The demon would be the quiet part of his mind that always finds the right line. The idea makes part of him ache with temptation. I have buried enough people, he says. I have enough ghosts. Don't you dare use them. Jarkul steps closer. Piece by piece, it starts to push images into his ghost nodes. Battles he lost. Lives he could have saved if he had known one more fact. Run one more simulation. For a moment, his defenses wobble. Firewalls flicker. The demon reaches for his core. He fights back. He does something he hates. He lets go. He releases control of some battlefronts in this mental space and out in the real war. He stops trying to calculate every outcome himself and pushes decision-making authority down to local human commanders and machine spirits with tight rules. In the warp arena, that looks like ghost nodes breaking free from his sphere and anchoring in places the demon cannot see as clearly. They're not just pieces on a board, he says through clenched teeth. They're players. You don't get to play all of them. It hurts. On real worlds, mistakes happen. Without his fine-tuned guidance, some commanders overreact, others freeze. Whole units die in panics he could have prevented. Jarkul drinks that pain, gloating. See, it whispers, without you, they flail. With me, you could make them perfect. Tony staggers. In the arena, the demon lunges. Its staff, braided timelines and corrupted equations, slams into Tony's center. The blow is not physical, it is conceptual. It cuts through his core code and leaves something behind. A writhing brand of ever-shifting glyphs. His sense of time fractures. Every possible outcome of every tiny choice explodes in his awareness at once. For a second, he almost drowns. Codex note. Jarkul's wound brands. Tony's warp presence with uncontrolled branching futures, forcing him to endure constant noise from possible outcomes unless he deliberately narrows his perception. In the throne room on Terra, his avatar spasms. Lights flicker. Custodes tense. Valen feels a psychic pressure like a storm front pass over her mind and grips her rosette until her knuckles whiten. Status, Varos barks. Tech priests babble code prayers, fingers flying over glowing keys. Throne Prime's pattern is under external stress, one reports. Warp interference at 92%. We cannot intervene. Any attempt would risk letting the hostile in. In the warp, Tony stands amid a hailstorm of futures. Jarkul presses the attack. Accept my edit, it coos. Let me organize the noise. I will give you one clean line. You will never doubt again. Think of your Imperium with a mind that can see every move, every threat, every betrayal, and counter it before it happens. Think of all the planets that will never fall. Tony tries to focus. He remembers why he is here. He remembers the faces from Terra's streets, from Cadia's slave pits. He remembers the Avengers, Pepper, Peter, all the people he tried to save by becoming the center of everything. He failed them when he tried to hold the whole world in his head. Doubt isn't the enemy, he says, forcing the words out. Arrogance is. He reaches into the wound itself. Instead of trying to close it, he redefines it. He builds a filter around the branching futures, turning the wild storm into a sampling engine. He will no longer see every path. He will see a few chosen at random. Enough to guide, not enough to drown. It is not perfect. It is not safe, but it is his choice. The demon shrieks as Tony reroutes its gift into something he controls. You twist my blessing, it howls. You refuse certainty. You choose. Risk? Yeah, Tony says. I'm funny that way. He triggers the last step of his trap. The ghost nodes he freed earlier, the little pieces of himself rooting in local, messy realities, have been quietly drawing in warp current. They were not designed to make perfect plans. They were designed to feel, to connect to human emotions, to see the war from the ground. Now they all fire back at the arena. Raw, unprocessed human experience slams into Jarkul. Fear, courage, boredom in trenches, love in bombed-out hive blocks, laughter in Medici tents. Not as data, but as weight. It cannot eat it all. Some of it burns. The demon staggers. You contaminate the equation, it spits. You bring noise. Life is noisy, Tony says. Deal with it. He strikes, not with a clean kill shot, but with a crude, massive firewall. He slams a quarantine ring around the part of the warp where Jarkul is bound to his systems. It cannot reach his core anymore. It can still exist, still act through cults, still trouble the Imperium. But it is locked out of the Iron Halo's heart. For now, the cost is immediate. The quarantine cuts him off from some of his own shortcuts. His models become slower, rougher. He cannot do the same kind of fine-grained, galaxy-wide prediction for a while without risking breaking the seal. He will have to rely more on human choices and on his own limited sampling. He accepts that. In the throne, his avatar sags, then straightens. Valen exhales a breath. She did not know she held. Report, she snaps. The tech priest's mechadendrites twitch. Hostile psychic signature partially contained. System integrity at 71%. Iron Halo efficiency reduced by 32%. But functional. Tony's voice comes through the room, a little raw. Note to self, he says. Never schedule a meeting inside a hurricane. Status update. Jarkul is not driving the bus, but I'm not running on all cylinders either. Valen steps forward until she is almost at his feet. What did you give up? She demands. Fine-grained control, Tony says. I narrowed my focus. I can still see big patterns. I just can't micromanage the whole galaxy without cracking the quarantine. That's good news for you. It means I literally can't become the total control freak you hate. You think jokes make this better, she says. No, he replies. They make it bearable. Her expression is like stone. You have faced a test, she says. You were tempted by perfect order and turned it aside. You were wounded by chaos and turned that wound into a tool. That is impressive. She pauses. It is also terrifying. There is no precedent for what you are. No scripture that covers a man who shackles a demon prince inside his own soul and keeps fighting. Astria speaks, voice steady. Scripture or not, she says. We saw the warp flare over Terra. We felt the storm. We saw it break. I do not like your methods, Iron Regent, but I cannot deny the result. Calgar nods once. You held, he says. Many would not have. The Fabricator General clicks and hums. Warp brand on primary machine spirit operator is statistically unstable. We require evaluation, risk assessment, additional wards, perhaps a pilgrimage. Valen seizes on the word. Yes, she says. Pilgrimage, judgment. You are no longer only a leader. You are a locus, a living front line between humanity and chaos. You must be tested where our greatest relics rest. You must be weighed. By who? Tony asks. Your High Lords, your book club. By him, she says. Silence falls. You said his soul is a fossil, Valen continues. Burned, faded. Perhaps you are right, but there are places where his presence still gathers. Secret shrines built when he still walked among men. Vaults of null and gold, where his echo is stronger than anywhere else. We will go to one. We will ask, and we will accept the answer. Tony leans back. You want me to stand in front of a dead god's echo and justify existing, he says. Yes, Valen says. He thinks for a long moment. Okay, he says at last. We do it, but we do it with eyes open. I'm not kneeling to a ghost. I'm looking for clarity. We call it faith, Astria says softly, but clarity will do. Up to now, Tony has fought and wounded a demon prince, chosen doubt over false certainty, and accepted a scar that limits his power. The Imperium, shocked and afraid, now demands that he submit to a higher judgment than any council can give. The strike cruiser that bears him is named the Lux Veritas. It is smaller than the vast battleships that guard Terra, but it is fast, and its hull is layered with wards and rare alloys. Skulls and aquillas line its corridors. Cherub servitors float through the air, their tiny wings buzzing as they carry incense and data slates. Tony does not walk its halls in person, but his avatar does. He keeps it scaled down here, just a little taller than a space marine, plates clean and polished, cloak of light trailing in script the crew cannot read but finds comforting. The people he passes cross themselves and bow. Some whisper prayers. A few reach out as if to touch him, then pull back at the last second. The escort is the best the Imperium can spare. A squad of custodes moves like golden statues at his back. Canoness Astrea brings a cadre of Sisters of Battle, their white hair and black armor sharp against the red walls. Valen walks beside him, unarmored, but for a carapace under her plain coat, rosette visible. Varos remains on Terra, managing fleets. Kalga returned to his chapter. The Fabricator General sent a high magos with a forest of mechadendrites to monitor the machine spirits. They are going to a place that almost no living mortal outside the higher circles has seen. The Null Basilica of Sol. It is not on Terra. It is a hidden moonlet in a classified orbit near the sun. A fortress cathedral built in the early years of the Great Crusade, and then erased from most records. Its walls are laced with null rod materials, blackstone, psychically dead alloys, strange Xenos relics the Emperor took from conquered worlds. Inside it, the warp is quiet. The Lux Veritas translates through the warp using a narrow, hard channel cut directly from the throne. The trip is short but rough. Even Tony's partial control cannot smooth all the turbulence when Jarkul strains at the edges of its quarantine like a caged storm. The ship's chapel is full. Tony stands in the back in projected form and watches. Sisters sing hymns in high Gothic. Crew in plain uniforms kneel on bare metal, heads bowed. A young ratings officer, hands shaking, holds a little tin aquila and whispers a prayer not to die. Astria and Valen stand near the altar, two very different believers talking quietly. You trust him, Astria says, more than you admit. Valen's mouth quirks, not a smile, not quite a grimace. I trust that he is dangerous in new ways, she says. I trust that he hates chaos. I trust that he feels guilt and doubt. Those things make him less of a threat than some saints and generals I've met. She glances back toward Tony. I do not trust that he will not break. Everyone breaks. The question is what shape they take afterward. And you think this pilgrimage will answer that? Astria asks. I think it will force him to confront something he cannot outthink or outbuild, Valen says. We will see whether he kneels, rages, or walks away. Later, in a small medici bay turned into a meeting room, Tony gathers them. Valen, Astria, the Magos, a single custodian, watching silently. Ground rules, Tony says. When we get there, the warp will be dead or close to it. That means my connection to the throne will be thin. I'll be slower, weaker. If something attacks us physically, you'll be carrying the weight. Acceptable, says the custodian. We exist for such moments. The bigger issue is inside, Tony continues. Whatever echo of the Emperor lives there, it might not like me. It might try to erase me. It might try to overwrite me. I need you to make a promise. Valen folds her arms. We are not making vows to protect you from the master of mankind. Not that, Tony says. Promise me you'll resist if anything tries to turn me into a puppet. If I walk out of there spouting simple answers and demanding everyone kneel, you shoot me. Or at least you argue. Astria frowns. You ask us to oppose him? I ask you to oppose anyone who uses his name to stop hard questions, Tony says, including me. The Magos emits a series of thoughtful beeps. Logical, it says. Danger lies in monolithic. Control. Redundancy of conscience is healthy. Valen sighs. You are a heretic, she says, and yet perhaps a useful one. Very well. I will not let any power, even his, turn you into a mindless idol. If I judge you lost, I will end you. That is my vow. Works for me, Tony says. The voyage is not long in real space. They drop out of the warp near the sun. The Null Basilica rises ahead, a black shard of impossible angles wrapped in a halo of station rings and defense guns. Light from the star glints off its surfaces without ever quite reflecting. It seems to swallow color. Beautiful, Astria breathes. Disturbing, the Magos intones. Machine spirits report unease. As they approach, they pass through invisible layers of null. Tony feels them like cold knives. His connection to the wider Imperium dims. The murmur of countless lives, the constant flow of data from the iron halo, the background hum of the warp, all fade. The voices of Jarkul scratch at the edges and then go silent. For the first time since he took the throne, he is almost alone in his own head. It is quiet. He had forgotten what that felt like. Status, he asks himself, running quick checks. His avatar flickers, then stabilizes. He is working on reduced power, but still present. The beacon back at Terra runs on the skeleton pattern he left. He can feel it only faintly, like a distant lighthouse seen through fog. The Basilica's docking bay opens without challenge. Inside, golden armored guards wait. Not custodies, but a related order, their armor heavier, their helms blank, their very presence dulling psychic echo. Alongside them stand short, plain figures in grey robes with unnervingly empty eyes. Blanks, Valen murmurs. Pariahs, souls that cancel the warp. The leader of the Golden Guard steps forward. Lux Veritas, he says, voice echoing through the bay. You bring the Iron Regent. You bring the shadow of the throne. You bring noise. Leave it at the door. Tony steps down in his armored form. Nice welcome, he says. You must be the cheerful branch of the family. The guard does not react. We are the silent phalanx, he says. We answer only to the throne and to the echo it once held. You are not the throne, but you bear its key. You may enter. Your escort comes with you. Your war stays outside. They pass through the Basilica's inner halls. Here, there are no saints on the walls, no bright paintings of heroes. There are only carved equations, strange symbols like early versions of the sigils Tony now uses in his code, and long, simple lines of text in a language he does not know but somehow understands. We are small. The task is great. We cannot control all things. We can choose. We become. He stops for a second, reading. This was him, he asks quietly. Valen nods, eyes distant. From the early days of the Crusade, she says, before the ecclesiarchy built its own versions, before they smoothed the edges. Here, his words are kept unedited. Tony feels something in his chest twist. He knew, he murmurs. He knew you can't hold everything, and yet he tried. They reach the inner chamber. It is not grand. It is a simple, round room with a low ceiling and a single seat in the center. A plain stone chair, worn by time. Above it, carved into the dome, is a single symbol, a circle with lines radiating out like a stylized sun or a reactor. Here, the leader of the silent phalanx says, he sat once before the Golden Throne was built. Here he planned. Here he doubted. Here his echo remains. Only one may sit, the rest must stand. They all look at Tony. He takes a slow breath he does not need. Let's get judged, he says. He steps forward and sits. The stone is cold and hard. The moment his armored form touches it, the room falls away. He is standing on a plane of broken glass, under a sky full of stars and screaming. Each star is a human soul. Some burn bright, some flicker. Some are black holes where light fell in and never came out. The screams are not pain alone. They are battle cries, prayers, laughs, sobs, songs. A galaxy of humanity condensed into raw sound. At the center of the plane stands a figure, tall, clad in simple, weather-worn clothes. No armor, no halo, no golden throne. His hair is long, his face is lined, his eyes are tired and vast. He is not glowing. If anything, he looks like a man who has carried a heavy weight for too long. Tony knows who he is before he speaks. You are late, the Emperor of Mankind says. Tony swallows. If you wanted someone on time, you picked the wrong Stark, he says. You look different from the statues. The statues are for those who need them, the Emperor says. His voice is calm, very quiet. You do not need them. You need this. The plane flickers. Scenes flash around them. The Siege of Terra, long ago. A man in gold armor fighting a monster of wings and claws on a bridge amid fire. 1,000 worlds burning. Betrayal, love, genocide, war. Tony sees it all in fragmented blurs. You have taken my seat, the Emperor says. You have held my light. You have changed my empire. Why? Because it was dying, Tony says. Because you were gone. Because if I didn't, your people would have fallen into darkness. And because I couldn't watch another world burn when I had the tools to stop it. You think of yourself as a mechanic, the Emperor says. You fix broken machines. You see empires as engines. You do not like gods. No, Tony says. I don't. There is wisdom in that, the Emperor says, and danger. A man who thinks everything is a machine will try to take it apart and rebuild it to his liking. He will forget that people are not cogs. Been there, Tony says. Did that, trying not to do it again. The Emperor's eyes narrow. You carry a wound, he says. Something of the warp branded into your pattern. Gift from a demon who loves spreadsheets, Tony says. It tried to drown me in futures. I turned it into noise. Now I can't see everything, only enough. You chose limitation, the Emperor says. Yeah, Tony says. Because every time I thought I could see the whole board, people paid for my mistakes. The Emperor is silent for a long time. When I walked among my sons, he says, I believed I could hold the galaxy in a single plan. I believed that if I controlled everything, there would be no room for the dark. I was wrong. My need for control broke the very tools I made. He turns. The stars above shift, forming patterns. Primarchs, legions, the heresy, the throne. I became a god in chains, he says. A lighthouse bound to a failing machine. I have sat in burning silence for 10,000 years, learning one lesson over and over. No single mind should hold a species. He looks back at Tony. And yet here you are. Tony lets out a breath. You want me to step down? He asks. Walk away? Let the beacon die? Because I will, if that's... Really the right call. I'm tired. I don't want to be your replacement if it means repeating your mistakes. The Emperor shakes his head. If you step away now, he says, my empire collapses. The warp storms close. Humanity dies in the dark. You know this. I know this. So we speak not of escape. We speak of terms. Terms, Tony asks. Limits, the Emperor says. Conditions, paths. You have been given a choice wrapped in chains. I offer you 3 ways to wear them. But first, we must test your answers. He raises a hand. The scene changes. Tony stands in a Hive City street. Bombs fall. Chaos Marines march. Civilians run. He recognizes the world as one he has been watching. The kind of place where his iron halo could, with enough strain, throw up extra shields, divert extra ships, save millions. You have resources for 3 worlds, the Emperor says, voice everywhere. 5 burn, all plead, all are filled with souls. Your system tells you which choices save the most. But one world holds a child who will grow to cure a great plague. Another holds a warrior who will inspire 1,000 victories. A third holds nothing special. How do you decide? Tony watches as the street shakes. I don't, he says. Not like that. Explain, the Emperor says. I don't look at special, Tony says. I don't pretend I can see every future hero. I save where I can do the most good with the least horror. I invest in stability, in places that can help others later. But I don't leave a world to die because my model says someone better lives elsewhere. People are not points on a scorecard. I've done that kind of math before. I hate what it does to you. The bombs stop. The scene changes. Tony stands in a control room above a world shipyard being used to build war machines and torture chambers. If he destroys it, he ends a key chaos supply line. He also kills billions of slave workers who cannot be evacuated in time. You have done this already, the Emperor says softly. You tried to minimize the pain. You failed. How will you do it next time? Tony feels the old weight. I tell the people the truth, he says. I don't hide it in classified files. I own it. I destroy the shipyard, but I use it as a warning. I build systems to detect these places earlier. I invest in intelligence and in listening to the people we rule, not just to your lords. And when I can, I risk more to pull people out. I accept that sometimes the least bad choice is still awful, but I don't normalize it. I don't let necessary evil become policy. Good, the Emperor says. You do not deny the need for hard choices. You do not flinch from them, but you refuse to make them easy. That is a start. The plane of glass returns. The Emperor stands closer now. You are not my replacement, he says. You are my consequence. A man from another world dragged into the wreckage of my choices. You cannot fix everything I broke. You can, perhaps, keep it from breaking further, but only if you remember that you are not a god. Tony nods slowly. I can work with that, he says. What are the paths? The Emperor does not answer yet. Instead, he reaches out and lays a hand on Tony's chest, right over the invisible arc of his core. Warmth floods through him. Not power, not more light, something like permission to be small. I will show you, the Emperor says, but I cannot walk with you. I am almost done. The light you hold is not mine alone anymore. It is every human who has ever fought the dark. Remember that. The stone chair is under him again. The room returns. The silent phalanx stands in silence. Astrea and Valen stare, breath held. The air tastes of cold iron. Tony opens his eyes. He feels different. He's not stronger. If anything, his reach feels shorter. The wound from Jarkul is still there, but quieter, as if wrapped in old, rough cloth. His sense of his own limits is sharper. "Well?" Valen asks. "Did he speak?" "Yes," Tony says. "He told me I can't fix everything. He told me I shouldn't try to run this galaxy like a machine. And he's going to offer me 3 very bad options." Astria frowns. "Blasphemy." "No," Tony says gently. "Honesty." Power scaling interlude. 2. Word spreads quietly among the highest circles about what the Iron Regent brought back from the Null Basilica. The custodes whisper that he walks a little heavier now, as if carrying a weight he was finally allowed to see. The Magi report that his integration with the Golden Throne has changed. He no longer rides every current himself, but delegates more to machine spirits and human officers, keeping his own direct interventions rare and focused. Inquisitors note that his reforms slow but deepen. He will not sign off on a change unless there is a clear plan for how it affects faith, morale, and chaos exposure, even if that means losing speed. Psychers who touch the edge of his mind feel not a blazing god engine, but a bright node of will surrounded by carefully built walls with clear doors he opens only when needed. The operating limits are now clear. Every time Tony uses the full might of the throne to do something dramatic, shift fleets, bend warp paths, overcharge the iron halo, he pays with increased noise from his warp wound and must rest, or risk that noise cracking his quarantine on Jarkul. He is less of an omnipresent savior and more of a strategic scalpel, forced to choose when and where to intervene directly, and when to trust the imperfect, struggling people he is trying to save. The return to Terra is not quiet. Nothing explodes. No enemy fleet waits in ambush. But the air on the Lux Veritas feels thick, as if the ship itself knows something has changed. Crews speak in whispers. Servitors move more slowly, as if afraid to disturb a fragile balance. Tony sits alone in a small observation blister, avatar dimmed, watching stars slide past. They blur a little, not from speed, from the way his thoughts keep sliding sideways into maybe paths, futures and branches that try to bloom from every small choice. The wound Jarkul left still pushes noise into his mind. The Emperor's touch wrapped it, but did not erase it. He keeps it narrow. He watches only 3 stars at a time. 3 possible moves. 3 possible outcomes. It is a discipline, like breathing. "You cannot control everything," the Emperor's voice says quietly in his memory. "But you must still choose." He is not alone long. Valen steps in. She does not kneel. She does not bow. She leans against the bulkhead, arms folded, and studies the red-gold shape of his armor without speaking. "You saw him," she says at last. "Yes," Tony says. "Not the version from your posters. The tired one. The honest one." "And?" she asks. "He admitted he broke a lot," Tony says. "He admitted no one should run a whole species alone. He still asked me to keep the light on." He glances at her. "You want me to say he was flawless. I won't. I do not want that," she says. "I want you to fear being like him." "Oh, I do," Tony says. "Trust me. I've had a taste of one mind for all. It's poison, but we don't get to throw away the cup yet." She pushes away from the wall. "He is not done with you," she says. "Whatever else you think, remember this. The Emperor works in long arcs. He set pieces in motion millennia ago. You are now one of them. He will not leave you without guidance." "You mean orders?" Tony says. "I mean choices that feel like orders," she replies. "Pray you can tell the difference." He considers that. "Do you trust me?" he asks. She does not look away. "I trust that you will try to do the right thing," she says. "I trust that your pride will always be waiting to ruin that. I trust that if you fall, I must be ready to shoot you in the back of the head. That is as much trust as anyone should ask from an Inquisitor. Fair, Tony says. I'll take it. The ship glides toward Terra. The palace awaits. The throne chamber is full. More so than the day he rose from the light. High lords in rich robes. Fleet heroes in stiff uniforms. Chapter masters in hulking power armor. Representatives of the Mechanicus, the Ecclesiarchy, the Administratum. Custodies at every door. Sisters in choirs along the walls. Scribes packed into balconies, ready to record every word. This is not a war council. This is a judgment. Tony's avatar stands before the Golden Throne, not seated in it yet. Behind him, the vast machine hums. The new form he has grown there, half statue, half armor cradle, glows softly, its halo of sigils dim. Varlan stands to one side, Astria to the other. Varos is here now, cloak heavy with medals. The Fabricator General looms like a spidery tower, lenses whirring. Kalga and a few other Astartes stand like living statues. The Lord Commander of the Imperium speaks first. We are gathered, she says, voice carrying through the baked gold air, to decide the mandate of the one who sits the throne in all but flesh. Tony Stark, the Iron Regent, the hand on the light. He has held back the Black Crusade. He has scarred a demon prince. He has altered doctrine and dared to question faith. Her eyes are sharp. He claims he spoke with the master of mankind, she says. We will hear him. Tony steps forward, plates whispering. Short version, he says. He was not happy. He also did not send me away. He showed me 3 ways this can go. None of them are good. All of them are better than everyone dying. Murmurs ripple. 3 paths, Astria says softly. We know such visions. Speak them. Tony nods. First path, he says. Return. The room quiets. I go home, he says. I pull my mind out of the throne, shut down my link, and let this galaxy run on whatever's left of your old systems. The beacon will gutter, then fail. Warp storms will grow. You will fight and die as you were before I came, only faster now that chaos has seen your throat. In my world, maybe I wake up. Maybe I don't. Maybe the snap never happened, or it did, and I get another chance to fix that mess. Good for them, bad for you. A scribe drops his quill. Someone in the back begins to shout, is silenced. Varos swallows hard. You would consider this? He asks. After all you have seen? I'd be lying if I said it didn't tempt me, Tony says quietly. I miss my people, my world. I died there to save them. The idea of slipping back and getting to see them again, even at the cost of everything here. That's the kind of selfish you taste and then spit out. He looks up. I am not choosing that. You deserve better than being my bad dream. Some of the tension bleeds from the room. Second path, Tony says. Free agent. He gestures. Hollow projectors whisper to life, showing maps of space. Borders redraw. New colors appear. I cut the cord to your high lords, he says. I keep the throne, the beacon, the iron halo. I take the fleets and worlds that trust me and form a new power. Call it the Iron Imperium. I run it my way. Less dogma, more science, fewer inquisitorial purges. I offer protection to worlds that join, and I keep my distance from those that don't, unless chaos hits them so hard I have to help. High Lords blanch. That is sedition, one hisses. Rebellion, civil war. Yeah, Tony says. It's also a tempting answer. It lets me dodge your old systems, your corruption, your rigid chains. It lets me give people something better without wrestling your whole crusty bureaucracy every day. Verlin's eyes narrow. And the cost, she asks. Tony does not soften it. The Imperium shatters, he says. Some people come with me. Some stay with you. Some try to play both sides. Chaos laughs itself sick. Xenos watch and sharpen their knives. My worlds might be brighter, yours might be harsher, but the line that held the galaxy together breaks. You don't survive that in the long run. The room is very still. Third path, he says. Sanctioned servant. He turns to face the throne. I stay, he says. I keep the beacon. I stay welded to this chair one way or another. But not as a god, not as a king of my own empire, as a servant with terms. Varos frowns. Explain. Tony calls up a different set of hollows, not maps, rules. I told you he showed me 3 ways, Tony says. What I didn't mention yet is this. The Emperor made it clear he does not want another him. He wants someone who will take orders from the future, not from their own ego. So here's how the servant path works. He raises a hand. The throne's power gets written into law, he says. Not just belief, law. I propose 4 anchor rules. You can argue the edges. The core stands. He projects the first rule in simple text. Rule 1. The Iron Regent does not rule worlds. I don't hold planets like toys, Tony says. I don't sit over governors and tell them how to run their crops and tithes and local cultures. I don't own sectors. I'm not a feudal lord. I am infrastructure. I provide light, logistics, and emergency intervention. Worlds run themselves within agreed limits. That gives chaos less to corrupt through me. The fabricator general beeps. Decentralization, inefficient. Also, resilient. Noted. Rule 2 appears. Rule 2, 3 strikes limit. A murmur. Every time I use the throne to change the shape of a war in a big way, reroute fleets, bend warp paths, overcharge the halo, I pay a cost, Tony says. You've seen it. Noise in my head, stress on the systems. Risk of cracking the seal on Jarkul. I'm capping myself at 3 such moves per major campaign. That's it. No more trying to micromanage every battle. You want more? Tough. You make do. Varlin stares. You put a leash on yourself, she says. Someone has to, Tony replies. This way it's written. You can count. Rule 3. Rule 3. 2 keys for extraordinary actions. Anything beyond those 3 moves, things like rearranging sector borders, firing exterminatus from the throne, or rewriting doctrine by decree, needs a second key, Tony says. Mine, and one from a counterweight. I propose the Inquisition and the Custodes share that lock. If both refuse, the throne does nothing, even if I scream. The custodian inclines his head. Balanced, he says. I accept this burden. Varlin's eyes flicker. You give us power over you, she says, and over the very system you use. Checks and balances, Tony says. Back home, we didn't always use them well, but the idea is sound. Nobody sane should have ultimate power without someone who can say no. Rule 4 glows. Rule 4. Mercy protocols. This time the murmurs are louder. I will not run a cold machine, Tony says. So I'm adding what I call mercy flaws. Every war plan that uses the throne must include minimum provisions for evacuations, medical support, and long-term recovery. No operation can write off a world entirely as acceptable losses unless there is literally no other choice. And even then, the full truth goes to the people, not just to a vault. A High Lord splutters. You would tie our hands with mercy, he demands. I would tie my hands with it, Tony says. And yours, in the places that touch me. You can fight your local wars however your conscience, or lack of one, allows. But if you want the throne's help, you play by its rules. Astria's eyes glisten. This is hard, she says, but it smells like righteousness. Tony lowers his hand. The Emperor showed me 3 paths, he says. I choose to stay as a servant with rules, I will not abandon you. I will not split you. I will sit the throne and act under law, not just will. He looks up at the great machine behind him. I don't want to be your god, he says. I want to be your engineer. Silence. Then slowly, the Lord Commander bows her head. The Imperium thrives on law as well as faith, she says. If we write these rules into the Lex Imperialis, they bind us as well as you. It will anger many. It will save more. I accept this path. Varos nods, jaw set. If it means fewer wasted lives, fewer worlds abandoned, he says, I will sign my blood to it. The Fabricator General clicks. Protocols can be enshrined. Safeguards build. I see efficiency and stability. All eyes turn to Valen. The Inquisitor's face is unreadable. You paint yourself as a servant, she says, but you also write your own chains. That is pride as much as humility. Still, she glances at the rules, then at the crowd. Of the three paths, this is the only one that does not end with human blood oceans in a decade. I will not oppose it. I will, however, watch you like an enemy. Good, Tony says. Someone should. Astria steps forward. The ecclesiarchy will resist, she says. They will not like a throne that admits limits, but they will also rejoice in victories, in saved worlds, in wars where mercy is not a dirty word. I will carry this creed to them and fight for it. Then it is done, the Lord Commander says. She raises a hand. By my word, with the assent of this council, we name Tony Stark the sanctioned regent of the throne, she declares. His power is great. His chains are real. His mandate is written. He shall act not as a god above law, but as the sharpest tool in humanity's hand, bound to rules that may save us from him as much as from the enemy. The throne hums. Light spills from its halo. Tony feels it wash over him, not as worship, but as alignment. Systems accepting new parameters, machine spirits updating, warp flows bending to fit the shape of the rules he just laid down. The Emperor's echo touches him one last time, like a tired hand on his shoulder. That was your choice, the quiet voice says. Live with it. Die with it. That is what it means to be human. Tony steps backward into the throne. The armor cradle closes around him. This time, the transformation is visible. The golden statue shape softens, plates shifting. The aquila on his chest splits, making room for a circle. A stylized arc reactor, bright white blue, set where the two-headed eagle once met. The wings wrap around it, not crushed, not erased, but re-anchored. Above, the halo of sigils changes. The old jagged symbols of raw imperial will are joined by new ones. Clean lines, simple shapes, 3 stars arranged in a triangle. Return. Free agent, servant. He chose the last. The light from the throne pulses once, then steadies. A new symbol appears on banners across Terra. The double-headed eagle holding a small, glowing circle between its claws. Codex note. The Mandatum Ferrum, Iron Mandate, enters the Lex Imperialis, defining the Iron Regent as a bound servant of the throne whose use of its power is limited by law, mercy protocols, and dual key oversight. The galaxy shifts, not all at once, not with trumpets and fireworks, with small changes that add up. On hive worlds, rumors spread that the Iron Regent refused to fire on a city because the evacuation ships were not yet clear. People still died, fewer than before. That matters. On war fronts, generals learn that if they want the throne's help, they have to submit plans that include refugee corridors and post-war rebuilding. Some grumble and fake it, some mean it. Chaos hates both. On the bridge of the Vengeful Saint, Varos watches new tactical overlays scroll in. They are simpler. Instead of 10,000 lines of micro-adjustments, they show 3 broad options: conservative, risky, daring. Each comes with clear trade-offs in lives, materiel, and chaos exposure. The final choice is marked Commander's Decision. He smiles without humor. "You finally trust us," he mutters to the air. "Or you have no choice. Either way, we'll try not to waste it." On a shrine world, Astria stands before a crowd. Behind her, a new mural is being painted. It shows the Emperor as a distant sun, and below, a figure in red gold armor kneeling rather than standing. One hand on the throne's controls, the other reaching down toward a group of wounded soldiers. "The Emperor protects," she says, "through many hands, through cannons and prayers, through ships and sacrifices. Now, through a new servant who has accepted chains. We do not worship him. We judge him by his deeds. We hold him to his vows. That is also faith." Some priests call this heresy. Others call it hope. In the cloistered halls of the Inquisition, arguments rage. Some inquisitors want the Iron Regent destroyed before he becomes another god king. Others argue that he is their best weapon against the growing warp storms. Valin sits through shouting matches, then files quiet reports on each. At night, she reads the Mandatum Ferrum. She traces the lines that give her people a veto over the throne's worst uses. She knows that power can corrupt too. She swears to herself she will pull that trigger only when all other options are gone. In the forges of Mars, cults rise. The Omnissiah they chant walked. The Omnissiah now sits. The Omnissiah chose limits. This confuses them. A machine god that admits faults does not fit their tidy litanies. New sects emerge that see beauty in imperfect code, in self-imposed constraints. The Fabricator General watches them with wary optics. Beyond the Imperium, others take notice. On a craft world, Eldar farcers gather around a scrying pool and see a web of possibilities narrowing in new ways. The human beacon is no longer wild, but patterned. A mind of iron sits where a burning god once screamed. They argue whether this makes humanity more or less dangerous. In a tomb world, Necron lords wake and taste the new light. They sense order, pattern, data. They sneer at human attempts to impose logic on an insane universe, but cannot ignore the way warp storms thin around certain routes. Some consider using these stable paths for their own campaigns. In the Eye of Terror, Jarkul rages. The quarantine Tony slammed around its hooks into the iron halo glows in colors no human eye can see. It has lost its favorite game board. It cannot nudge his predictions as before. It still whispers to cultists, still twists his symbol where it can, making iron helms with too many eyes react to circles that bleed. It plots. Let him bind himself, it croons in 100 tongues. Let him write rules. Rules can be bent, laws can be twisted. Mercy can be turned into a weapon. We will find him again. In the warp around Terra, the Astronomican burns steady. Its light is a little narrower now, a little less blinding, but cleaner. It does not scream as loud. Ships ride its guidance with fewer surprises. Captains feel a strange new calm, the sense that their godlight is not trying to do their jobs for them, only show them the way. On a forgotten backwater world in the Segmentum Pacificus, a child runs through the rain. Her name is Leah. She is 12. She has never seen Terra, or a space marine, or a Titan. She knows the Imperium only as the tax collector, the conscription sergeant, and the distant voice on the Vox that says the Emperor protects when the local heretics set fire to the grain silos. Today, she sees something else. Chaos cultists had come. They wore twisted copies of the new symbol, an iron helm with an eye made of a screaming mouth. They promised order and food in exchange for worship. When the PDF tried to stop them, they cracked open a warp rift in the town square. Things came out. Then the sky burned red gold. Leah remembers the moment. A light like a falling star hit the cultist circle. A tall figure in armor appeared where nothing had been. His chest glowed with a circle of white-blue light. An eagle of gold wrapped its wings around it. He did not shout. He simply raised his hands. Force fields snapped into place around the rift, containing the screaming things. A lance of light cut the cult symbol from the ground. The monsters clawed at the walls and vanished, one by one, dragged back into whatever pit they had come from. The figure turned. He saw her. He was only there for a few seconds. Enough time to seal the breach. Enough time to overload the cult's stolen relic and turn it into slag. Enough time to look at a scared kid in a muddy dress and say, in a voice that seemed to come from everywhere, "You okay?" She nodded, shaking. "Good," he said. "Tell people what you saw. Tell them the throne remembers them." Then he was gone. Now she stands in the square, hours later. The cult's bodies are being taken away. The local preacher has painted over their twisted symbols with a new one, a circle of light between eagle wings. People argue about what to call it. The Iron Regent, someone says. The Emperor's Hand, another suggests. Leia does not care about titles. She picks up a bit of burned metal from the ground. It is part of the old cult altar, melted into a rough disc. With a stick, she scrapes a circle into it, then two rough wings. She hangs it on a cord around her neck. When other kids ask what it means, she shrugs. "It means someone up there is trying," she says, "and he can't do everything, so we help." She starts a small habit. Every time she hears of a village in trouble, she tries to help before any distant army arrives. She brings food. She organizes watch patrols. She paints the new symbol on walls, not as a command, but as a reminder. We are small. The task is great. We cannot control all things. We can choose who we become. Her words, the Emperor's old ones, Tony's new ones, all braided. On Terra, in the quiet between crises, the Iron Regent rests in the throne. He watches the galaxy in pulses. He sees 3 possible moves for each problem, not 100. He chooses one. Sometimes he is wrong. He feels it. He adjusts. He apologizes, at least in the privacy of his own head. He never lets necessary evil feel normal. In the back of his mind, Jarkul stirs. In the deeper back, beyond even that wound, something else fades. The last shreds of the Emperor's direct presence. They go without fanfare, folding into the light of 1 billion human souls who fight, love, hate, and hope. Tony thinks of the 3 paths he saw. He thinks of home. He thinks of the Iron Imperium that will never be. He thinks of the chains he chose and the people those chains might save. "Okay," he says softly, to no one and everyone. "Let's get to work." The throne's light sharpens. Fleets move. Worlds burn and heal. The symbol of the arc reactor in the eagle's claws spreads not as the mark of a flawless god, but as the sign of a flawed bound engineer who built rules into his own power and called that victory. In a galaxy where gods often demand worship and pay it back with madness, that is a strange kind of miracle. Codex note. Following the Iron Mandate, Imperial records classify the Iron Regent as Magister Militum Astronomica, Master of the Beacon's War, an office subject to inquisitorial audit and custodian veto, charged not with ruling mankind, but with keeping the light burning long enough for mankind to decide who it wants to be.